England, but it does clear the south, where it's a muggy night, 17 or 18 Celsius by the start of Thursday. Cooler towards the north, with further blustery showers for the north and northwest of Scotland. Another breezy day here. Heaviest downpours likely for Shetland and Orkney. The rain band that I mentioned across central parts of that continues to push north on Thursday into northern England, southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, North Wales. To the south, brighter skies develop. Actually, a warm day with temperatures up to 22 or 23 Celsius. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The exit slip road from the M73 to the M74 southbound at Junction 1, Maryville, is restricted due to emergency bridge repairs. The on-slip from the A721 to the M74 southbound is closed, causing delays. In North Lincolnshire, a broken-down vehicle on the A180 westbound is causing 30-minute delays. Norfolk's A47 eastbound is closed due to a collision, expected to clear by 12:45. And on the trains, Gatwick Express faces delays between Haywards Heath and Weevelsfield. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
And with a dynastic touch, George Martin's son, Giles Martin, is involved in all of this.
Yes, so he's the keeper of his father's flame, really, which is very touching.
It's very, very touching. How can it be? I mean, we've been talking about a band here that was playing before we were able to send pictures across the Atlantic. How can a band that is that old cause such excitement today?
Well, it's such a number of elements. They encapsulated so much of the early 20th century music. Fats Domino, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Tim Panally through Paul McCartney's father. He grew up hearing his father playing the piano. He had a big jazz band. They played around Liverpool. So all of that music went into the Beatles' crucible. And I find it so interesting that Decca get ribbed for turning them down. But those early sessions are not showing them at their best. And they say guitar bands are on their way out, but actually it took the Beatles to bring them back and show everybody a completely different scene, a completely different imagination of what guitar music can be. It took the Beatles 3 albums to really get into their stride, because their first 2, let's not forget, were sort of covers in a way. So there's a few of their own songs in there,
but a lot of covers.
But with Hard Day's Night, it's all their own tracks. And what can I say? The energy of them, the invention of them, when you watch Get Back, you see how much craftsmanship they put into constructing a completely unique song. That's the thing about the Beatles. Each song is so unique. There's no replication in any of their output.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 9:30 on Wednesday, the 17th of September. Live across the United Kingdom, this is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
And we're broadcasting live from Windsor Castle for Donald Trump's second state visit. Now, of course, overnight, the president has doubled down on his love for Britain.
I love Turnberry, I love Aberdeen. I have a lot of things here that they warm my heart, I want to tell you. It's a very special place. Great place.
Well, Trump touched down at Stansted Airport for his historic second state visit. Later today, he'll meet the King and Queen.
President Trump describes King Charles as his friend, and it is up to King Charles to provide that pomp and pageantry that Britain is so famous for, making sure President Trump feels welcome.
But last night, protesters here in Windsor projected an image of the president with the convicted sexual predator Jeffrey Epstein's face on the walls of the castle. And police are expecting many more protests today.
But will this visit be a welcome distraction for Sir Keir Starmer, who faces intense scrutiny on his decision to appoint Lord Peter Mandelson as the British ambassador to the United States? We'll have the latest.
And in other news, deportation has been denied in another blow for the Prime Minister as the High Court has blocked the deportation of an asylum seeker to France. It was supposed to be 1 in, 1 out, but how many migrants are still coming in?
Well, welcome to Windsor Castle for this historic second state visit of the President Donald Trump to the United Kingdom. What a momentous occasion for us, Miriam Case.
It really is historic, as you say, but also for me, because I've never been to Windsor before, and I have to say it is a beautiful town. And we arrived here on the train last night, came off, saw beautiful high street, of course, well-kept castle, and the flags. I know you like flags, Charlie. There are flags everywhere. British flag, but also the American flag.
Yes, and this is my local hometown growing up. I used to come here all the time as a little boy, so very posh. You just about worked that one out, hey, after all these years of work.
I didn't like to say.
And I have to say, this town really comes in its own when these sorts of occasions are on. But I was a bit surprised when I turned up last night, and the first thing I saw was those Jeffrey Epstein images being beamed onto the castle, and I did see the police flying straight into that hotel to arrest someone after that took place, but certainly not the welcome that Donald Trump was going to hope for today.
But he does love Windsor Castle, and when he was invited on this state visit, he did mention that he always wanted to come here because it's not at Buckingham Palace, because Buckingham Palace is under repair. So very conveniently for Trump, he gets to visit Windsor Castle. So we're looking forward to getting lots of shots inside the castle as well this morning.
Yeah, it's going to be a great day, and we're very keen to hear what you think as well. gbnews.com/your say. But before we continue our coverage here at Windsor Castle, let's get your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Charlie, thank you very much and good morning. The top stories: the US President is in the UK for his second state visit, telling reporters Britain is a very special place. Donald Trump touched down last night with his wife Melania. The red carpet is being rolled out with carriage processions, military parades, the Red Arrows and a state banquet. Meanwhile, Britain and the US have struck a tech deal that could bring billions of pounds of investment to the UK as President Donald Trump arrived to the UK. Sir Keir Starmer saying the agreement represented a general step change in Britain's relationship with the US that would deliver growth, security and opportunity up and down the country. Sir Keir Starmer is facing renewed pressure over his 1 in, 1 out migrant returns deal with France after an Eritrean man won a last-minute High Court bid to temporarily block his deportation. And UK inflation remained unchanged last month, but food and drink prices have accelerated for the 5th month in a row. The ONS says the rate of consumer prices index was 3.8% in August, the same as July. Those are the latest headlines for now. More at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom here in Windsor with Charlie Peters and Miriam Kate. And we're very excited to be here, Charlie, ready for Donald Trump's second state visit to the UK. But not many members of the public around this morning.
Yes, very quiet, a pretty sombre, strange atmosphere in Windsor even. Perhaps the atmosphere changed by those protests last night, but I'm sure that will heat up as we await the arrival of Donald Trump here at Windsor Castle.
And there are going to be protests in London, which we will be catching up with later. Protests by a group that want a republic, but also don't like the kind of republic that America is. So you wonder what kind of government they really want.
Well, it does at the moment, Miriam, feel as though the United States is becoming perhaps even more of a monarchy than Britain, with the way that Donald Trump is treated like such a king in the US. Maurice Glasman, the Labour peer, saying that finally America has recovered their sense of being a monarchy, and we'll certainly see, and we're going to hear loads from Cameron Walker about this, of course, the pomp and pageantry in Britain. But Donald Trump brings his own pomp and ceremony, of course.
Yes, and it is almost like a medieval court, but a really important visit for the Labour government as well. And I think a lot of people agree, even those who are very critical of Sir Keir Starmer, that he has done a good job of building bridges with the Trump administration, not an obvious political ally for Labour and Keir Starmer, but nevertheless achieving in trade deals what perhaps many other European countries haven't done. So they'll be very much hoping that that relationship is furthered during these next 2 days.
Yes, and they do need a distraction, don't they, this Labour government? They are desperate for the news headlines to move away from some of the sleaze and scandal that has occupied Downing Street and Westminster over the last couple of weeks. The arrival of President Donald Trump, they'll be very keen for that to stay the way it is. And also, Miriam, we've had this intervention, haven't we, from the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, Sir Sadiq, of course, knighted. He has described Donald Trump as far-right and engaging in the autocrat's playbook. That will be really unhelpful in the headshed in Labour.
But there is clearly no love lost between the two of them, and Trump actually mentioned Sadiq Khan even when he was up in Scotland playing golf. So obviously this ongoing feud, but some of the sleaze you mentioned is actually transatlantic, and of course you saw last night that projection on the castle wall. The Epstein scandal is not just one here in Britain that's been obviously surrounding Peter Mandelson over the last couple of weeks, but it could have potentially embarrassed Trump too.
Yes, I think Trump will be quite keen to avoid those questions. I think he finds them almost boring at this point, and he's hoping the story will die down. It's very much unhelpful from the Washington perspective for this Mandelson crisis to erupt again in Britain, putting Epstein back in the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the focus today is going to be on the pomp and pageantry, but tomorrow there are going to be trade talks, lots of talk about huge levels of investment from tech, AI, which is going to be very important for this government. But here we've got Cameron Walker, our royal correspondent, with us. Cameron, what can we expect from this morning, in fact today's visit?
Well, absolutely. It is going to be the largest military spectacle that has happened in living memory when it comes to welcoming a foreign head of state. So for President Trump, this is a huge honour, and I think it's very telling, of course, that this is his second state visit as well. And you, of course, speaking about the shoring up relations between the two countries, and it was Sir Keir Starmer who invited President Trump to come to the United Kingdom for this. President Trump isn't coming to see the Prime Minister. First and foremost, he's coming to see the King, King Charles. And it's King Charles who will be wielding his soft power today with a magnificent military display of 1,300 soldiers, 200 horses, who have been rehearsing for weeks and weeks and weeks, making sure that President Trump feels honoured, because we all know that President Trump loves pomp and pageantry and loves feeling like the most important person in the room. And my word, I mean, I've seen some of the plans that we're going to be seeing later on today, and it is going to be quite the spectacle. Nothing we've seen on this scale, as I said, in living memory. But also it's going to contrast to what President Macron got in Windsor Castle just a couple of months ago, because Buckingham Palace is being resurfaced. That's why we're all here in Windsor rather than in central London. But President Macron got a carriage ride through the streets of Windsor with cheering crowds. President Trump isn't having that, we think, for security reasons. Now, of course, all of this was decided way before Charlie Kirk's assassination last week. But I think it is quite telling that there's going to be no public-facing element to this visit. All of it is happening within Windsor Great Park, or within the quadrangle, or within the castle itself. Yes, we've got lots of TV cameras so we can bring GB News viewers and listeners the very latest, but in terms of the public, they're not getting anywhere near President Trump.
And Cameron, you say Donald Trump loves the pomp and pageantry in general, but he really specifically loves British pageantry, doesn't he? And there's those beautiful footage of Donald Trump looking through photos, reflecting on his first term as president, and it was that first state visit that he clearly speaks about so highly, one of the highlights of his life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think meeting Queen Elizabeth II really was, as you say, Charlie, a highlight of his life. His mother was Scottish, so of course he has that connection to the United Kingdom anyway. He's got 2 golf courses in Scotland as well. And he will actually be paying tribute to the late Queen, who is buried in the building just behind us, St George's Chapel, and President Trump and Melania Trump will be taking a moment of silent reflection at her grave later on today. So it will be remembering the past, but but also looking ahead to the future. And I think it's going to be interesting listening to the state banquet speeches tonight, because of course there's 160 odd guests in St George's Hall, where King Charles will deliver a speech and President Trump will deliver a speech. How much is going to be about the warm, soft power relationships between the two nations, and of course loving the love of the royal family that he has, as opposed to the political stuff?
Now, of course, there are very strict rules about etiquette around the royal family. Famously, last time when Trump met the Queen, he accidentally walked in front of her. She had to avoid him. What instructions will Trump and the rest of his team have been given this time about how to treat the royal family properly and to avoid that kind of embarrassment?
Well, you say accidental, Miriam, but I think some people would argue that President Trump was actually in the right the first time around. So it is President Trump being invited by the King to inspect the Guard of Honour. Now, in recent memory, that would mean that the visiting head of state would walk slightly in front of the monarch, which is what we saw in 2019, but then, of course, you saw a lot of the media were criticising President Trump for walking in front of the Queen. Yes, it was a bit clumsy, yes, it was a bit awkward, but in terms of the precedent, it looks like that was probably the right thing to do. And when President Macron of France was here a couple of months ago, he did exactly the same thing. He walked in front of King Charles.
Because, Cameron, he was inspecting the Queen's Guard, he'll be inspecting the King's Guard this time. It's his inspection, really, hosted by the King. He's meant to get up close and see what the beautiful tunics of the guards are wearing and inspect the polishing efforts that they've been doing for those weeks and weeks of prep that you're discussing, right? But talk to us about this state banquet, because that's going to be potentially one of the most delicate parts. It's the most speaking involved, and it's the most public speaking involved in this trip. What can we expect to happen there?
Well, what we do know, of course, is the Liberal Democrat leader Ed Davey has boycotted it due to his stance on Gaza, and of course perhaps other political boycotts as well. 160 guests will be at the table. We're not sure if those seats are going to be filled by other politicians or other guests, or if they're just going to be, shimmy the seats along. It's going to be, lots of gold, lots of silver. Every knife, every fork measured within an inch of its life. Every glassware, I think it's 5 glasses per guest, polished within an inch of its life, so it's shining. It's a really long hall. I think it's about 50 metres in length, St George's Hall, and it's a white tie banquet. As I said, there's going to be speeches, and it is a chance for Americans with a link to Britain to mingle with the upper classes, as it were. Now, usually, so for example, with the French state visit, we had, lots of French celebrities who were at the table. But I think it's going to be quite interesting to see which celebrities, US celebrities who live in the United Kingdom, are going to be at the banquet, because a lot of them are Democrats and wouldn't be seen in a room with President Trump. So how many have been invited and have decided not to come at all?
Cameron Walker, your best day, the day in the life of a royal correspondent. Really interesting, though, Charlie, about the fears for protests over Trump's visit. I was reading this morning, just 16% of British people approve of Trump, although 40% approve of the visit. But I wonder how this is being perceived back in Washington.
Well, yes, and we know that Americans do love the royals. There's plenty of British media here, of course, but plenty of Americans as well. British stories very rarely sort of peep into the American news cycle, but whenever our royal family are involved, we know that American eyes and ears are all over us. So stay with us here on Britain's Newsroom, live from Windsor, as we get the latest on this historic state visit.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
If you're thinking of avoiding the unsettled weather in the UK and heading overseas, you'll find very warm weather in Spain, across the Canaries, as well as Madeira, unusually warm for the time of year. Portugal likewise, but some showery rain affecting southern parts of Portugal. Meanwhile, plenty of sunshine through Spain into the Alps, much of Italy as well, turning hotter here over the next few days. Staying breezy for Greece, particularly the islands, but most places enjoying long spells of sunshine.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Bev, I'm so sad that you're leaving Britain, but so excited that you're going to go and conquer the United States of America.
Congratulations on this fantastic posting, and I hope you have a fantastic time on your big political adventure in Washington, D.C.
And I just know this is your time, this is your place, America is your place. You are going to shine.
Yeah, Bev, you are going to absolutely smash it. America, be ready for Bev Turner.
Well, actually, I'm not even going to say good luck. You don't need it. You're going to bring Washington down like a storm, bringing us the inside track of everything.
It's the reconquest of America. You are going where Columbus went before, and remember that the English are best.
We're really, really excited about GB News America, and you are the perfect person to be fronting it. We can't wait to watch you, although it's going to be so hard not seeing you in the studio.
Yeah, we're going to miss you hugely, Bev. We know you are absolutely going to smash it. You will be. You're going to have them on the run.
Good luck to you. You won't need it because you're a legend. We saw that at Turnberry, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in just a few weeks. Love ya. Wow.
Well, it's been a ball, Bev. Nobody could say it's been dull, eventful, unpredictable, erratic. We've not always seen eye to eye, but it has been a great experience for me, and my loss is America's gain. So the very best of luck to you.
That was quite emotional. I got quite tearful then.
Well, the people are very fond of you, but great outpouring of love and affection and admiration for what you're going to do.
And I'm going to, honestly, I'm not leaving GB News. Let's just be clear. I am going to be hosting a show Monday to Thursday. You're going to be seeing me all over every show. Hopefully, I'll be popping up here and there. I'll do some exclusive bits for Andrew here. I'll send
Thought you'd say.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 9:47. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Miriam Cates and Charlie Peters here in Windsor.
Now, Sir Keir Starmer is facing renewed pressure over his partial migrant returns deal after the High Court scuppered another potential return in that one-in, one-out deal with France. And we can cross now live to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who has all the latest. Catherine, this is a very delicate moment for Sir Keir Starmer and his government on an issue that they just can't get a win on.
Yes, they really can't, can they? And the irony of a Prime Minister who was a human rights lawyer having this flagship one-in, one-out policy now derailed by other human rights lawyers. It's really quite something. So what has happened is the Home Office have detained about 100 people that they have earmarked to be sent back to France. The plan is that it will act as a deterrent. People who have applied in France will then be brought here in the same numbers. But although this deal was signed to much fanfare with President Macron back in July, they still haven't deported a single person. Originally, they planned to send people back last month. Now they were hoping, and indeed say that they are still expecting to send people back this week. But there's been several days now that they've tried to get migrants onto flights back to France, and they have failed because it has been blocked in the court. So most recently, a 25-year-old Eritrean man should have been on a flight at 9 o'clock this morning. Now, a temporary injunction has been granted. He's given 14 days because he's arguing that if he's sent back to France, he will be at real risk of destitution. Now, the Home Office are saying that this undermines their whole project. The whole point of this is to act as a deterrent, and they're worried now that other people will make similar claims. When the migrant was asked why he had crossed from Eritrea, he'd crossed to Italy, then he'd crossed to France, and then to Britain, what the problem was with being sent back to France, a safe and very prosperous country, of course. He said that he'd seen people sleeping on the streets there and that basically people weren't treated very well. Of course, we have many of our own people sleeping on the streets here. So I think a terrible start. And let's face it, we hear the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, referring to this as a gimmick. That's exactly what Labour used to say of the Rwanda plan. But, you know, we've had a Tory government and now a Labour government absolutely failing to get any sort of grip on this. Channel migrants crossing this year at record numbers.
Now, Catherine, for those of us who have been following this saga for a long time, we have deja vu this morning because this is reminiscence of the so-called pyjama injunction back in 2022 when there was a flight to Rwanda on the tarmac and a Strasbourg judge woke up in the middle of the night and called it all off. Now, this time this is a UK High Court judge, but it's exactly the same thing, and it proves that unless we leave the ECHR or at least ignore the Human Rights Act for the purposes of deportation, it is not possible to send people back to France or any other country. What did Chris Philp have to say about that?
Yes, well, Chris Philp has said that this is just another gimmick, that the government are failing. But of course, the Conservatives haven't put out their plan yet. We are waiting to hear. There's a review that Kemi Badenoch has commissioned into whether Britain should leave the ECHR under a possible future Conservative government. That's due to report in the coming week. So we don't ultimately know what the Conservative policy on this would be. We do know what Reform's policy would be because they've made it very clear. Mass deportations, pulling out of the ECHR, the Refugee Convention and so on and so forth. The Conservatives, of course, say that Reform have come along and eaten their homework. But yeah, I agree. It's totally deja vu. We had Stop the Boats from Rishi Sunak. We've had Smash the Gangs from Sir Keir Starmer. Nothing so far is working.
And Catherine Foster, obviously this comes at a very delicate moment for this Labour government. They've got the Commander-in-Chief of the US government visiting Britain, and he is touting and often praising his deportation and border policy. Over 1,000 flights they've managed to put on since he came into power in January, Donald Trump. Do you think Sir Keir Starmer might be asking the President for a few words of advice as he continues to battle for legal supremacy over his deportation policies?
Well, I suspect that the President may be giving Sir Keir Starmer some advice, whether he wants it or not, because, of course, that is one of the big successes of the Trump administration so far. They have got illegal migration down massively. They have totally transformed the picture in terms of people coming in. They are deporting people. They have got very, very tough indeed. Now, look, the government still is hopeful that it can get people on flights this week. It is only a trial. It could be scrapped at any moment, but they're hopeful that it will still happen. But of course, unless they can get it going and unless they can ramp the numbers up significantly, migrants are going to look at the maths and they're going to work out, well, at the moment, you know, if I've got a 1 in 17 chance of being sent back, the chances are I will still get to stay. Liz Kendall has been on broadcast this morning saying, you know, if you come to Britain illegally, you can and will be deported. Well, maybe you can be deported. Let's wait and see if it happens. But will be deported? Absolutely not, because the numbers that we're expecting on this scheme likely to be only about 50 people a week. If and when, as the government says, is going to happen, it actually does.
Well, Catherine Forster, our political correspondent, thank you very much. Charlie, I think this deal is dead. The lawyers have found a way to stop it. There's no way back.
Yeah, and just think about all the pain that the Tories went through over the Rwanda deal. Sir Keir Starmer's having a bit of that experience himself. But stay with us here in Windsor on Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News, as we continue to cover the historic visit of Donald Trump to the United Kingdom. Here's your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A wet and windy start for many of us this morning. Drier for many later, but
but it does stay damp in some places, most notably across parts of the Midlands and into Wales. Actually, it's Wales where we've seen the heaviest rainfall so far, and that rain continues through much of the day. Rain warning in force until lunchtime because of the risk of localised flooding. The rain does turn lighter, and in fact many places dry up and brighten up. For the north part of Wales, the North Midlands, Northern England, Northern Ireland, much of Scotland, some sunny intervals developing, blustery in the northwest and the south, and it stays damp across the south of England and South Wales, with further heavy rain turning up as we go into the evening. Meanwhile, across Scotland, that's where our rain is moving slowly into the Northern Isles, but showers for much of the rest of the north and northwest of Scotland, with some clear spells through central and southern parts. Northern Ireland, clear spells, mostly dry as we end the day, still fairly blustery with a gusty southwesterly breeze. But it stays damp through much of Wales, into northern parts of Devon, for example, through parts of the Midlands and East Anglia. And that rain band, well, it really sticks around overnight. There'll be further pulses coming and going of persistent and heavy rain for much of Wales. It edges a bit further north by the start of Thursday into the rest of the Midlands, as well as parts of northern England. But it does clear the south, where it's a muggy night, 17 or 18 Celsius by the start of Thursday. Cooler towards the north, with further blustery showers for the north and northwest of Scotland. Another breezy day here. Heaviest downpours likely for Shetland and Orkney. The rain band that I mentioned across central parts, that continues to push north on Thursday into northern England, southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, North Wales. To the south, brighter skies develop, and actually a warm day with temperatures up to 22 or 23 Celsius. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Travellers should anticipate significant congestion on the M73 southbound at Junction 1, Maryville, as emergency repairs are currently underway. Additionally, a traffic accident has led to substantial delays on the M69 southbound, impacting commute times. In Norfolk, all lanes remain closed on the A47 following a serious collision, and motorists are advised to use alternative routes to alleviate potential delays. Rail passengers should also be aware of disruptions on the Gatwick Express and Great Western Railway services, prompting possible timetable changes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's our
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News. We're live across the United Kingdom with Miriam Cates and Charlie Peters. And we are broadcasting live from
Windsor Castle for Donald Trump's second state visit of the United Kingdom. And overnight, the US president doubled down on his love for Britain.
I love Turnberry, I love Aberdeen. I have a lot of things here that they warm my heart. I want to tell you, it's a very special place. Great place.
Yes, the US President Donald Trump touched down at Stansted Airport for his historic second state visit. And later today, he'll be meeting the King and Queen.
But there has been some anti-Trump protests, the US president being greeted by protesters projecting images of the convicted sexual predator Jeffrey Epstein's face on Windsor Castle. Police expect many more protests today.
That's right, the protest started last night with a dinner disrupted by protesters in Windsor. We have exclusive footage. Stay tuned.
But will this visit be a welcome distraction for Sir Keir Starmer, who faces intense scrutiny on his decision to appoint Lord Mandelson before, of course, that controversial sacking last week? He was, of course, the US ambassador to America.
And deportation denied. In other news, there's been a blow for the Prime Minister as the High Court has blocked the deportation of an asylum seeker to France. So far, they've deported 0, but how many migrants are coming in?
Well, 5,500 migrants have arrived since this deal came into force, but as of yet, not a single person returned to France. I'll bring you more details shortly.
Charlie, there's been lots of talk about the special relationship. Quite a lot of Brits don't believe it exists anymore, but I think just looking at how all the different news stories overlap between Britain and America, migration's one of them, the Epstein scandal is another of them, US-UK ambassador. We are very, very closely connected to America, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, we're very much tied to their political cycle. When America speaks, the world listens because they absolutely have to, especially with our security, defence, migration, our political and legal alignments so closely to the American machine. Their regulatory changes have a huge impact on our business as well. There's going to be a few trade deals signed coming up, and there's increasing anger in the Trump White House about the Online Safety Act as well, and what that could mean for American tech companies. This really matters.
Yep, absolutely. And Keir Starmer will be hoping that Trump doesn't speak publicly about his concerns for free speech, but no doubt there will be some behind-the-scenes discussion. But what's really interesting, Charlie, is the contrast between the Trump presidency and the Biden one. By the end of his term, Biden was hardly ever speaking to the media. He very rarely made headlines here in the UK, and yet every single day now, on all of our front pages, there's something about Trump's America.
Yeah, and we're all listening, and I hope you are as well, because we've got an excellent programme here on Britain's Newsroom lined up for you in Windsor Castle as this historic city, one of the jewels in Royal Berkshire, prepares to welcome the US President. So stay with us and send in your views and comments. You know the drill by now, gbnews.com/your say. Very keen to hear what you think about the President's state visit. And do you think the Starmer charm offensive will work again? All of that coming up just after your news headlines with the wonderful Tatiana Sanchez.
Charlie, thank you very much. The top stories. The US President is in the UK for his second state visit, telling reporters Britain is a very special place. Donald Trump touched down last night with his wife Melania for the unprecedented second state visit. The red carpet is being rolled out with carriage processions, military parades, the Red Arrows and a state banquet. Prince William and Princess Catherine will meet the American couple in the grounds of the Windsor estate today. But as Mr Trump headed to the residence of the US ambassador to the UK in central London to spend Tuesday night, giant projections of the president alongside paedophile Jeffrey Epstein were beamed onto Windsor Castle by protesters. It is there that he will meet the King later today. Thames Valley Police saying 4 people were arrested on suspicion of malicious communications after those images appeared on the landmark. Mr. Trump has faced questions about his relationship with Epstein after messages allegedly sent to him by the president were published by Congress earlier this month, something President Trump has vehemently denied. Britain and the US have struck a tech deal that could bring billions of pounds of investment to the UK as President Donald Trump arrived to the UK. Sir Keir Starmer said the agreement represented a general step change in Britain's relationship with the US that would deliver growth, security and opportunity up and down the country. The tech prosperity deal, announced as Mr Trump arrived late last night, will see the UK and the US cooperate in areas including artificial intelligence, quantum computing and nuclear power. It comes alongside £31 billion of investment in Britain from America's top technology companies, including £22 billion from Microsoft. Shadow Science and Technology Secretary Julia Lopez spoke to GB News.
Ultimately, we are in a tech race, and in that race we want to be on the side of the United States and also to make sure that the UK has a good sovereign capability. By and large, it's good to have cooperation with US tech. We need their expertise. We are not alone going to be able to put the investment into some of the things that need to be invested in relation to some of the key technologies around this. But I want to know what has been given in return for this trade deal. It sounds very good with the US inward investment, but has anything been given away? And as ever with this government, have they done a good deal? Because they're very good at producing good headlines. Sometimes you find out later in the day that they've given away something that we didn't actually want to give away. So that detail comes on Thursday, which makes it difficult for me to fully understand and embrace what's gone on with this deal.
Sir Keir Starmer is facing renewed pressure over his one-in, one-out migrant returns deal with France after an Eritrean man won a last-minute High Court bid to temporarily block his deportation. The man, who cannot be named for legal reasons, had been due to be removed on a flight at 9 a.m. today, but will remain in the UK after a judge granted him a short period of interim relief. Lawyers acting on his behalf said the case concerns a trafficking claim and that her client, who alleges he has a gunshot wound in his leg, claims he's vulnerable and faces a risk of destitution in France. The Home Office defended the case, saying it was reasonable to expect the man to claim asylum in France. Tech Secretary Liz Kendall saying the government is disappointed by the judgment, but it will not stop the France agreement from going ahead. Breaking news this hour, a group of critically ill and injured children have been evacuated from Gaza to the UK for urgent NHS medical treatment, the government has announced. The World Health Organization said that it had supported the medical evacuations of 10 critical children from Gaza to the UK. This comes a day after Israel rejected a UN report which concluded it's committed genocide against Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. The report said there are reasonable grounds to conclude that 4 of the 5 genocidal acts defined under international law have been carried out since the start of the war in 2023. Elsewhere, UK inflation remained unchanged last month, but food and drink price rises have accelerated for the 5th month in a row, new official figures show. The rate of consumer prices index was 3.8% in August, the same as July. The Office for National Statistics said this was the level that most economists had been expecting for the month, and it means overall inflation remains elevated above the UK's 2% target rate. However, the rate of food and drink inflation rose to 5.1% in August from 4.9% in July. Chief Secretary to the Treasury spoke this morning.
Well, we know a lot of families are finding things tough, and we're determined to bring down the cost of living and to put more money in people's pockets. And that's why we've increased the national living wage, we've extended the bus fare cap, and we've expanded free school meals across the country. And that's why we're doing that whilst at the same time growing the economy to make sure the economy works for working people and puts more money in their pockets.
James Murray there. Elsewhere, Tyler Robinson has appeared in court via video link, charged with the murder of Charlie Kirk. The 22-year-old from Utah was seen for the first time since his arrest after being charged with aggravated murder, weapon and obstruction of justice offences. It came after prosecutors announced they'd be seeking the death penalty. They claimed Robinson's DNA was found on the trigger of the alleged murder weapon. A note was also found under his keyboard, which said, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it," according to a charging document from prosecutors. It is also alleged the suspect ordered his roommate to delete incriminating text messages about the killing and to stay silent if questioned by police. And the prime suspect in the high-profile case of Madeleine McCann's disappearance has been released from prison in Germany, where he's been serving a sentence for an unrelated offence. 49-year-old Christian Bruckner was freed after serving a sentence for the rape of an American woman, then 72 years old, in Portugal in 2005. He'll be fitted with an ankle tag after his release today. The rape took place in Praia de Luz, the holiday resort on the southern Portuguese coast, where the 3-year-old Madeleine McCann disappeared 18 months later. He has never been charged with any crime in relation to the McCann case. He denies any involvement. Those are the latest headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
Good morning, it's 10:10. Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom, and we are broadcasting live from Windsor Castle in anticipation of Trump's visit. And what an amazing spot we've got here, Charlie. GB News, best place in town, I think.
Yeah, right behind the entrance to Windsor Castle, seeing plenty of police officers from all across the United Kingdom coming to support this policing effort. Quite a few officers from Northern Ireland behind us. Yeah, no strangers to delicate security situations, those officers, that's for sure, on what is going to be a really significant security and military operation.
And they're so worried about protests that actually there will not be any public near the castle. We know there are some protests in London, but actually it's quite quiet apart from the media and security teams right now.
Yeah, and we've got a front row seat. We've got Cameron Walker inside the castle, who's going to bring you all the latest shots and all the best vision inside the castle when the US President Donald Trump arrives. But here in Windsor, I'm very happy to say that we are joined by American political commentator Nora Lee Knotson. Nora Lee, thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Wonderful to see you, Charlie. Great to be here.
And what's the mood in the United States about Donald Trump's visit? Do they still see Britain as a vital partner to engage with? Is this as significant an issue in Washington as it is in London?
I think given the unprecedented turmoil we've had in our democracy over the past week, I think this historic second state visit underlines not only the special relationship that the U.S. has with the UK, but how important it is, despite differences in politics between Prime Minister Keir Starmer and President Donald Trump, that it is important to put the prosperity of the citizens of its two nations first and foremost. And with that, there's a lot of interesting deals being announced this week.
Now, of course, Nora Lee, they will be focusing on the points of agreement, the things that they can achieve. But there are some points of disagreement. We've talked about free speech issues, but also over legislation like the digital services tax, which the Americans are very cross about. But the British would say, well, companies like Amazon, who do billions of pounds of trade in this country, ought to pay their fair share. What's going to be going on behind the scenes when it comes to tax bills like that?
I think that's a very good question. Trump has been very vocal, saying the EU uses taxing U.S. tech to fund itself. And he won't back down on that stance. But more importantly, I think he will try to focus on all the positive. We saw that Blackstone is investing £100 billion into the UK. BlackRock has announced a £500 million investment into data centers here. Clearly, AI is very important, not only to our technological progress, but to national security. So I think there will be a lot of focus on the positives. Clearly, peace will be also part of the discussion. The conflict Russia-Ukraine, the conflict between Israel and Gaza will also be part of those conversations.
And Nora Lee Knotson, we've learned more about some of the delicate planning that went behind Sir Keir Starmer's visit to Washington, his first in the Oval Office with Donald Trump, about how they practiced him producing this invitation, about how they practiced each response to questions they might have anticipated from J.D. Vance on free speech, for example. But the great terror almost for this Labour leadership is that they just don't know what the US president is going to say. He is so unpredictable.
That is correct. I mean, Donald Trump is known for being very transparent in what he thinks. He does keep his eye always on his end goal, but his path of getting there will diverge at times, and it takes, people get thrown off their feet. But Trump will be transparent, so we can expect an exciting visit, that's for sure, and there will be no moment for dull periods.
And Nora Lee, how is this being covered in the US? We know that Americans love the British royal family. Is it wall-to-wall coverage or just a sideshow?
I think everybody's talking about it. I was here last night at the Guildhall. The Republicans overseas hosted a dinner in honor of this historic moment, and it was fantastic to be together with everybody. You know, we honored Charlie Kirk, and what was very interesting, Ken Legrand, who was a dear friend of his, said, the issue with Charlie Kirk is not what he said, but actually that people listened. And actually during that dinner, there were protesters who actually came into the dinner to talk about climate, oil, and we must honor freedom of speech and peaceful protest. And I think freedom of speech will be front and center as well.
Yeah, and it absolutely will be. Thank you, US political correspondent Nora Lee Knotson. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And there will be plenty of free speech here on GB News, of course. And let's get a little bit more on the protests that we can expect coming up, because we can speak to our political editor, Christopher Hope, because he's got some exclusive footage of protesters already causing a bit of disruption. What can you tell us, Chris?
That's right, Charlie. It looks great in Windsor, by the way, Charlie and Miriam. Yeah, here in London, we're preparing, of course, for protests starting around 2 p.m. today. There's around 1,600 Met police officers ready to ensure that those protests carry off peacefully. 5 p.m. in Parliament Square, a big rally is called Stop the Trump Coalition. Zach Palancy, the new leader of the Green Party, he should be addressing that. Overnight remarks from Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, saying that perhaps Donald Trump has done the most to fan the flames of divisive far-right politics around the world in recent years. So the language is getting heated, but so have the protests. Last night, as Norley was saying just then, there was a Republican gala dinner in Windsor, and it was disturbed by climate change protesters. We have exclusive footage. Here it is. That's some of the footage from last night's dinner. Now, that was a climate change group. They were chanting, if we drill, baby, drill, how many will we kill? And oily money kills. It was a formal three-course dinner organised by Republicans overseas. Greg Swenson, well known to our viewers, chair of that group, he was there. And he told the dinner, according to reports, that I hope whether it's Reform or a party like Reform, I hope they, that's us in Britain, get a MAGA revolution, a common-sense revolution in the UK. So lots of lessons from this visit by Donald Trump and his MAGA movement on how that might transfer across into Reform UK in the UK.
And Chris, what do you make of the intervention of the London Mayor Sadiq Khan this morning, who has accused, in The Guardian, I understand, Donald Trump of stoking the far right? Will this be an embarrassment to Keir Starmer?
I don't think so. I think that the London Mayor Sadiq Khan has a bit of licence to do this. He made similar remarks on the last state visit back in 2017, I think, from memory, or 2018. And he made those remarks then from about it. It was seen to be, it's what he says. There's been a bit of to and fro going back between Donald Trump and Sadiq Khan on social media. Those remarks again, though, he said there, the London Mayor, that Donald Trump has perhaps done the most to fan the flames of divisive far-right politics around the world in recent years. That, of course, is disputed by those who look up to Donald Trump and think he's done a lot to help America's economy and, frankly, make America great again. That is not where the London Mayor sits. There'll be protests later. We saw, of course, the Donald Trump baby, the baby blimp, hovering over, tethered but hovering over Parliament Square last time. Will the baby blimp make a return again today? Stay tuned to GB News for all of the action.
Thank you, Christopher Hope, our political editor there in London. And let's stay on domestic political issues, because Sir Keir Starmer is facing renewed pressure over his partial migrant returns deal with France after an Eritrean man won a last-minute High Court bid to temporarily block his deportation. And we can go and speak now with our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who has all the latest on quite a dramatic evening of deliberations in the High Court last night. Catherine.
Yeah, so the government had hoped to be sending a number of migrants back to France this week on Air France flights, and so far they haven't sent a single person. Now, there was an injunction granted late yesterday afternoon to an Eritrean man who was due to be sent back. He has claimed to have been trafficked, something which hadn't initially come up when he was first interviewed on arrival back in August, and he said that he faces a real risk of destitution if he is sent back to France. So now he's been granted 14 days, basically, to appeal this. But it throws a huge spanner in the works for the government, who are desperate to show progress, because the numbers crossing the channel illegally on small boats now stands at 31,000 so far this year. That's up nearly 40% on the same period last year. These are record numbers. And since this supposed one-in, one-out deal was announced with President Macron back in July, 5,600 people have crossed the channel. Remember, this is supposed to be a deterrent. Now, we knew that initially it was going to start with quite small numbers, maybe 50 a week. The idea was, and still is, that once they've proved it is workable, assuming that happens, that they can ramp up the numbers significantly. And in return for France taking these people back, we will take people who've applied in France and coming that way. Those people are ready to come here, and yet we have yet to send a single person back. The opposition party saying this is just a gimmick. It sounds exactly like Labour said of the Conservatives of the Rwanda plan. The difference, of course, is that France is a safe country, absolutely proven to be. Nobody would dispute it.
Catherine Forster, our political correspondent there. An astonishing story, Charlie. I mean, lots of people could have said that this was coming. I'm slightly worried that we're going to be reversed into, and it's never nice reversing a vehicle when you're being watched, but this is a bit excessive. Do you think they'll tell us if we're about to get hit?
I trust the GB News crew. They have our safety first at all times, although producer Will is currently shaking his head, so that's very reassuring. But, well, I mean...
Guys, just say jump when it's time.
What Catherine Forster was speaking about there, Miriam, is very serious, because they are in deep trouble, the Labour leadership, on this. And watching those deliberations in the High Court yesterday, I mean, listening to the arguments being put forward by this Eritrean man's very, very experienced KC, they knew, I think, that they were going to find one way that the judge had to agree with them on. There are just so many legal ways to avoid deportation. The law's got to change.
Exactly. And the Home Office lawyers were making the argument that this man was not going to be destitute if he was flown to Paris, because at least 2 charities had already offered to support him. And yet somehow, under the ECHR, under the Human Rights Act, the judge could not prove or conclude that he was not going to be destitute. How can you ever prove that someone is not going to be destitute? It just shows what a mess our human rights legislation is.
A huge mess, and there is now increasing pressure within the Labour leadership team to sort that out. The Labour peer Maurice Glasman said that unless Starmer gets rid of the ECHR, makes a serious change to human rights law, then his legacy could be the end of the Labour movement. Is that hyperbole? I don't know. But either way, it's certainly a strong view from an influential Labour peer.
And perhaps these lawyers have actually done us a favour, because they've proven that even a Labour government can't get past these human rights laws.
Indeed. Well, let's move on now, because we've got time for the Great British Giveaway now, and it's your chance to be our biggest winner to date, with a prize package worth over £104,000.
Well, it's not a coach, but it is a brand new motorhome and £30,000 in tax-free cash. Here's Hayley Sparks with all of the details.
Listening or watching on demand.
Don't go anywhere, because coming up next, the US President Donald Trump will be meeting Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer during the course of this state visit, but we wonder if they'll be discussing the sticky issue of free speech.
Stay with us here on Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, Dame Helen Mirren has said that despite being a feminist, she believes the next James Bond has to be a chap.
OK, she said that she believes it just doesn't work, and by having a woman as Bond, the project becomes something else entirely.
So we are asking the question, could Bond ever be a woman?
Well, we're joined by a former what is termed Bond girl, Jenny Hanley, and... Oh, yeah, and there is... we weren't expecting you, but it's really 007 podcast contributor John Kell there as well. Jenny, you've been there, done it, got the T-shirt, been involved in it. What's your take?
I think James Bond has to be a male because he came from the imagination of Ian Fleming. If you want a female 007, don't ride on his coattails and take the fame that has come from his character, James Bond. Write your own.
Yeah, you see, that's what I tend to think. But
I just think that you just go 007. The problem is, right, the last Bond film, he died. James Bond died. I mean, there was a... Oh, sorry.
Great, I haven't seen that one.
Sorry, yeah. I think everybody pretty much now knows that he definitely... I mean, there was an absolutely... It wasn't even did he or didn't he, can he or can he not survive. It was 100% gone. So it's now time for a clean... The nice thing about a clean sheet, surely, John, is that you can actually go, right, so 007, let's do the 007, and then we can do different stories, because the books that have been written by Ian Fleming have been well and truly milked, haven't they?
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom on GB News, live here in Windsor. Now, Charlie, one of the things that President Trump is expected to talk to Keir Starmer about while he's here is free speech. It's something that the Americans are following very closely.
And it's a sticky issue for Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, because we saw in the Oval Office J.D. Vance challenging Keir Starmer on free speech, and it's an issue he's raised at the Munich Security Conference as well. So Keir Starmer has obviously kept saying we've had a long and proud history of free speech in the United Kingdom, but plenty of Britons disagree with that, and I'm very happy to say that we're joined now by the External Affairs Officer at the Free Speech Union, Connie Shaw, for more discussion on this issue. Connie, free speech is going to be central to these discussions, there's no doubt about that. Do you think that recent controversies could leave Sir Keir Starmer in a tricky situation when discussing this with the US President?
Absolutely, Charlie. I think, as you say, if you just go back to J.D. Vance first, bringing it up at the Munich conference, things have only gotten worse. Like, since the last meeting between Starmer and Trump, we've had the arrest of Graham Linehan, who, for tweets that he made from Arizona when he was in the States, arrested as he arrived in the UK. Obviously, a very different welcome to what Trump was presented with when he arrived in the UK. We've had Nigel Farage in Congress very strongly putting the point across to the American politicians about the crisis that we are in. And also we have, of course, had the tragic murder of Charlie Kirk. And I'm sure it will be concerning for Americans to see the relatively mainstream celebration of his death, including the president-elect of the Oxford Union. And also, I think it's quite relevant to touch on the fact that because we have protests against Trump's visit to the UK, that's quite illustrative of the attitude towards people who hold different opinions that some people in society in the UK have. Although the protests are less widespread than they were at the previous state visit, it is still important, and it does highlight how some Britons feel towards people that they disagree with, that they would protest the visit of a democratically elected leader of our strongest ally entering our country.
But Connie, isn't that the point of protest? The fact that we're allowed to protest in Britain. We expect people to express their political differences. Whether we agree with the beliefs of the protesters is highly irrelevant. The fact that the protests are happening is surely a sign of a healthy democracy.
Yeah, yes, and I completely support their right to protest. I just think it does illustrate that people have a certain... they think that people shouldn't be able to visit the country because they disagree with them. This is a democratically elected president. I completely support their right to protest, but I think it is illustrative of the fact that people are against the President of the United States from entering the country. Of course, their protests are never going to stop President Trump from coming over here, but I think it does highlight a certain attitude that some of us in Britain have. Not all of us, but certainly those people protesting.
Connie Shaw, there's going to be so much discussion, I think, about how the US president and the wider American political machinery are very concerned about their tech companies and the impacts of legislation in Britain on free speech, in particular on X, of course, now owned by Elon Musk, a sometime ally of Donald Trump. Do you think we could see pressure being put on British political figures and also those tech bosses to ensure that free speech takes place online in the United Kingdom? And what sort of pressure could that be?
Well, absolutely. I mean, of course, we've seen in the past the US threaten tariffs on this sort of thing, and the Online Safety Act, to remind people, doesn't just apply to companies that are based in the UK. It can apply to companies based anywhere that that has a large reach in the UK. So at the moment, if the companies do not comply with the Online Safety Act, they can be fined up to £18 million or 10% of their revenue, whichever is greater. So that will have a large impact on tech companies. And we have had an increase in American citizens applying for memberships at the Free Speech Union who are concerned that they might come into a spot of trouble when they come to the UK. So I will not be surprised. I'd be surprised if there wasn't pressure being put on politicians in this country to make sure that the Online Safety Act is not overreaching into American citizens' freedom. And we've been warning about at the Free Speech Union, we've been warning about the Online Safety Act for a long time, and it was even worse than we feared it would be.
Well, Connie, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. Charlie, these aren't black and white issues, and one of the things that happened immediately after the murder of Charlie Kirk was the actual video of his murder circulated widely online. Many, many millions of children saw that. Many right-wingers said that that was completely inappropriate. That's exactly the kind of thing that the Online Safety Act is supposed to prevent. Yet at the same time, it carries risks that the president's clearly very concerned about.
And I totally get your point about people, being nervous about children or vulnerable people seeing those horrific acts of violence. But at the same time, I'm nervous about if you introduce that power, it could be used by autocratic governments in the future to remove footage of police brutality or government overreach. And so as soon as you give them those powers, can you really trust them? And I think those are sort of discussions we could see happening here, because Sir Keir Starmer's almost gotten away with it, right? When they've had that debate about free speech in the Oval Office, just saying, we've always had free speech in this country. JD Vance backed off a bit there.
And of course, the issues that actually caused the Americans to pay attention to this were caused with existing law, like the Public Order Act and malicious communications, old laws that are being misinterpreted for the internet age. But the Americans have their problems too. They might have total freedom of speech under their legislation, but in reality, actual violence is preventing people from speaking out.
Yeah, big time. And the murder of Charlie Kirk, I think it's highly likely we're going to see an intervention there. Some discussion from British political leaders. But stay with us here at Windsor Castle as we continue our coverage of Donald Trump's second state visit to the United Kingdom. But before we carry on with that, let's get a 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Charlie, thank you very much and good morning. The top stories. The Prince and Princess of Wales will soon welcome Donald Trump and US First Lady Melania Trump to Windsor Castle for the start of their state visit. Donald Trump touched down last night with his wife. The red carpet is being rolled out with carriage processions, military parades, the Red Arrows and a state banquet. Britain and the US have struck a tech deal that could bring billions of pounds of investment to the UK as President Donald Trump arrived to the UK. Sir Keir Starmer said the agreement represented a general step change in Britain's relationship with the US that would deliver growth, security and opportunity up and down the country. Prime Minister's facing renewed pressure over his one-in, one-out migrant returns deal with France after an Eritrean man won a last-minute High Court bid to temporarily block his deportation. And UK inflation remained unchanged last month, but food and drink price rises have accelerated for the fifth month in a row. The ONS says the rate of consumer prices index was 3.8% in August, the same as July. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Well, coming up next, we'll be speaking to one man who'll be protesting in London against the state visit today and find out why he's there. Don't miss it. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. A wet and windy start for many of us this morning, drier for many later, but it does stay damp in some places, most notably across parts of the Midlands and into Wales. Actually, it's Wales where we've seen the heaviest rainfall so far, and that rain continues through much of the day. Rain warning in force until lunchtime because of the risk of localised flooding. The rain does turn lighter and, in fact, many places dry up and brighten up. For the north part of Wales, the North Midlands, Northern England and Northern Ireland, much of Scotland, some sunny intervals developing, blustery in the northwest and the south, and it stays damp across the south of England and South Wales with further heavy rain turning up as we go into the evening. Meanwhile, across Scotland, that's where our rain is moving slowly into the Northern Isles, but showers for much of the rest of the north and northwest of Scotland, with some clear spells through central and southern parts. Northern Ireland, clear spells, mostly dry as we end the day, still fairly blustery with a gusty southwesterly breeze. But it stays damp through much of Wales, into northern parts of Devon, for example, through parts of the Midlands and East Anglia. And that rain band, well, it really sticks around overnight. There'll be further pulses coming and going of persistent and heavy rain for much of Wales. It edges a bit further north by the start of Thursday into the rest of the Midlands, as well as parts of northern England. But it does clear the south, where it's a muggy night, 17 or 18 Celsius by the start of Thursday. Cooler towards the north, with further blustery showers for the north and northwest of Scotland. Another breezy day here. Heaviest downpours likely for Shetland and Orkney. The rain band that I mentioned across central parts, that continues to push north on Thursday into northern England, southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, North Wales. To the south, brighter skies develop and actually a warm day with temperatures up to 22 or 23 Celsius. Bye-bye.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M73 southbound, the exit slip to the M74 southbound at Junction 1 Maryville is restricted due to emergency bridge repairs. The on-slip from the A721 to the M74 southbound is closed, causing delays. An accident on the M42 northbound at Junction 3 in Worcestershire has closed one lane, resulting in 15-minute delays. On the A38 eastbound in Devon, a broken-down vehicle is causing lane closures, And on the trains, delays are ongoing on the Gatwick Express between Haywards Heath and Wyvelsfield, with minor delays on Great Northern services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom, live on GB News with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates here in Windsor. And all eyes are on Windsor. But of course, there is also a number of anti-Trump protests going on and also anti-monarchy protests.
Yes, in central London this afternoon, there will be a Republic rally taking place with anti-monarchy supporters comparing the King to the American president, saying corrupt billionaires are not always the answer. Well, joining us now to debate this is the CEO of Republic, Graham Smith. Graham, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
Tell us why you're so against the monarchy and why a republic might be better.
Well, I think that Trump is sort of symbolic of what goes wrong when people have too much power, and also of people who are privileged, who are very, very rich, and who don't have very good sort of respect for democratic values. And it's a bit different in the UK, obviously, because that power is handed over to the Prime Minister. But if we had a Trump-like Prime Minister with a slavishly loyal, MAGA-like backbench, we'd be in far more trouble than the US is now. The US Constitution is just about holding up in the face of considerable stress and tension caused by Trump's actions. But we have no checks and balances, no boundaries or guardrails in British politics if a Prime Minister with the support of their backbench wish to essentially get rid of our democracy, and the monarchy is part of that. The head of state would simply sit back and let the politicians do what they want with royal powers. So that's a big part of it. Another part of it is obviously that, as we said, corrupt billionaires are not the answer to anything. And like Trump, Charles has been accused of breaking the law. Nothing's been proven, but it's been accusations. There's been investigations by the police with relation to cash for honours. There's accusations of misuse of public money. There's accusations of contempt for democratic values. And, of course, nepotism, because that's the basis of the royal family. So if people protesting today don't like Trump, then our message is, well, look closer to home, because we've got someone
no evidence, Graham Smith. Sorry, Graham, I'm going to interrupt you whether you like it or not. But at the same time, there's been a recent interesting interruption, hasn't there, from Maurice Glasman, the Labour peer, talking about how Donald Trump is basically Julius Caesar in the US and how he's bringing a monarchy to a republic. Do you want the UK to be a bit more like the US, where politicians can become kings?
No, I mean, in fact, what I'm saying is that in this country, we're at far more risk of that, because if a Prime Minister wanted to do that and had the support of their backbenchers, there was absolutely no barrier to it whatsoever. And whilst Trump is facing very serious barriers in the form of the US Constitution, the separation of powers, the states, there are no such barriers in the UK. So if we had that in the UK, we'd be in very serious trouble.
Now, you've argued that the UK's constitutional monarchy carries risk. You've argued that the US Republican system carries risk. Surely the whole point of a government is that they do have the monopoly on violence so that they can, if needs must, control population in a time of emergency. What political system can you think of where politicians have enough power but can never abuse that power?
Well, it's commonplace across Europe. So if you look at Ireland, if you look at Germany, when Germany, we had a hand after the war.
It worked out so well in the last century.
Well, no, the German constitution after the war was deliberately designed to avoid subsequent problems. We held a hand in designing it. The Irish constitution is a model that we look to. Places all across Europe have these models. They are stable and democratic. And in other words, what it is a parliamentary system, a democracy not unlike our own, but democratic. So you have a written constitution with boundaries. You have a elected head of state who guards the constitution but isn't governing the country, and you still have a prime minister with enough power to govern and to make decisions, but a parliament that can actually hold them to account and to actually have some independent authority in passing laws. So you disperse power, and not all power is held in the hands of one person, as it generally is in the UK with the Prime Minister.
OK, Graham Smith, CEO of Republic, thank you very much for your time this morning. Of course, Miriam, those protests going on today. I almost feel a little bit sorry for Graham because we only ever really hear from him when there's so much prominence of the royal family at their very best. Republican, their protesters come out for the really great, beautiful and exciting events. They are really fighting an uphill battle with that, aren't they?
They are, and there is still plenty of support for the monarchy in this country. He didn't mention the Swiss system, which is where it's almost direct democracy. They have a referendum every other week. People make their own decision, even from things as petty as when they want their bins collected, all the way up to what they think about immigration. And of course, Switzerland is a very stable society.
Yeah, it's a big
Maybe
plus.
we need more direct democracy.
Well,
we know how well referendums go in this country.
Let's now bring in the royal historian, Alexander Lohman. Alexander, thank you very much for joining us this morning. A very significant moment for British-American relations, and it's a historic first, a second state visit for a foreign leader. What do you think about that decision to offer him that visit?
Well, Charlie, I think it's fair to say that it wasn't expected in many quarters, but obviously it's a very political decision to offer a second state visit because it would have been done at the behest of Keir Starmer. And how the King feels about it can only be surmised, because obviously Charles is a very traditional conservative figure and President Trump isn't. So what we're seeing today is we're seeing the clash of two entirely different and entirely separate worldviews. And you can imagine that Charles will be on his best behaviour, he'll be smiling, and of course his speech at the banquet tonight will be another masterclass in Charles delivering a public statement. But I doubt he's very happy about it, because in a sense he's being asked to open his home, his ceremonial home, to this man who I don't think he would necessarily be a natural bedfellow with, I think it's fair to say.
Well, all eyes will be on their initial greeting, and no doubt Trump will have been briefed on how to greet the King. I believe you are allowed to shake the hand of the King, but Trump's handshakes are so famous, there's a whole Wikipedia page dedicated to it, and I think he held Macron's hand for 30 seconds in 2017. How do you think the handshake will go?
Well, I think what's going to happen is that Trump might try and hug the King. I mean, he's always trying to do something which is unexpected and, in some sense, going against the grain. So the King will have been briefed minutely as to all the possible outcomes of what Trump could be doing, because obviously the King will not be relishing this. He'll be thinking, what have I got to do? And if Trump tries to hug him, he'll just have to hug him back, which is...
It's so strange to hear that the King won't be relishing this. I mean, it's a wonderful opportunity for British-American relations. There's billions in trade deals being signed. It's an opportunity for him also to display the world-class, second-to-none military and pageantry offered by the household division. Isn't it also really an opportunity for him to show off as well?
It is, but of course there's two things at play. First of all, we've just had a state visit with Emmanuel Macron when all this happened. And secondly, Trump's had a state visit already, and most presidents, in fact every other president, was happy with one. So the second state visit just reinforces the sense that Trump is not like other presidents, and he is not to be treated the way that everyone else is. And of course this flatters him, because Trump has always believed he is exceptional, and as time goes on, the rest of us are coming to that belief as well. So what's going to happen today and tomorrow is going to be absolutely fascinating to see. But anyone watching Charles, watching his body language, is going to have a field day, because ultimately you can see a man who will be deeply uncomfortable with what's coming, and he'll be smiling, and you can think underneath that smile is get it over with, and all that the royal family can hope for is no scandal, no problems, and nothing embarrassing.
Okay, thank you, Alexander, and yes, it'll be fascinating to watch, and we'll be keeping a close eye on it here.
I'm sure Cameron Walker will be analysing the greeting live for us. Well, of course, we are on watch for Donald Trump, the King and Queen set to meet him today. But first of all, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
If you're thinking of avoiding the unsettled weather in the UK and heading overseas, you'll find very warm weather in Spain, across the Canaries, as well as Madeira, unusually warm for the time of year. Portugal likewise, but some showery rain affecting southern parts of Portugal. Meanwhile, plenty of sunshine through Spain into the Alps, much of Italy as well, turning hotter here over the next few days. Staying breezy for Greece, particularly the islands, but most places enjoying long spells of sunshine.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show Live starts Monday night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
only on GB News.
It's 51 minutes past 10. You're here live at Windsor Castle with me, Charlie Peters, and Miriam Cates for Britain's Newsroom. Let's cross live now to our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, who's inside the beautiful castle behind us, preparing for the arrival of the US President. Cameron, what can you tell us?
Well, as you can imagine, Charlie, security incredibly tight here. We've got lots of armed police officers and lots of Secret Service actually wandering around the grounds of Windsor Castle, as you might expect. Of course, the pomp and pageantry is not far away here, and of course we'll be bringing you that live on GB News. The King inside the castle currently. You may be able to see the Royal Standard flying above my head of the Round Tower. It is going to be the largest military display in living history for a state visit. A real honour, really, for President Trump. Of course, unprecedented that he's getting a second state visit from a reigning British monarch. But it's actually the Prince and Princess of Wales who are kicking all of this off. As future King and Queen, they are going to be the two people greeting President Trump and the First Lady Melania when they arrive here at Windsor Castle, and then will escort them to meet His Majesty the King and the Queen, we hope. It has not 100% actually been confirmed whether the Queen can attend all of the engagements today, because yesterday, of course, she pulled out of the Duchess of Kent's funeral due to sinusitis, and we have asked several times this morning, and Buckingham Palace still have not confirmed whether or not the Queen can take part in today's proceedings. So watch this space place for that one. But of course, it's the pomp and pageantry that is on display here, something we know that that President Trump even really appreciates and really loves. President Trump describes King Charles as his friend, and it's going to be the king wielding his soft power on behalf of his government, because the royal family is the ace card that Keir Starmer has to play. So all of the buttering up that's going to happen for President Trump over the next day is going to potentially help when President Trump goes to Chequers and meets the Prime Minister for those political negotiations tomorrow. But today, all about the pomp and pageantry.
Well, Cameron Walker, our royal correspondent, inside the grounds of Windsor Castle there, and it does highlight, Charlie, how small the royal family has become now. Only a few members involved in this visit.
That's right, and coming up next here live at Windsor Castle, we'll also be discussing this deportation desperation, another hammer blow to Sir Keir Starmer's migration plans. Stay with us here, Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's been a wet start to the day for many of us, but it is turning drier and brighter for most parts. However, it stays damp in some southern areas, and it's going to be blustery throughout, particularly across the northwest of the UK as this low passes by. Isobars tighten, peak winds cross Scotland overnight. But before that happens, well, we keep a trailing weather front through parts of East Anglia, the Midlands, Wales and the southwest. So on and off rain through the day here. Picking up a little bit again across South Wales, particularly over higher ground later, turning heavier and more persistent. Mild in the south and across some eastern parts, temperatures up to 21 Celsius. If we get some brightness coming through, and that's certainly likely to happen across North Wales, Northern England into Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland also seeing the cloud breaking up into the afternoon and evening as the weather front moves into the Northern Isles. Further showers follow for the northwest of Scotland. The winds pick up as well with gales around exposed coasts and hills. But further south, well, it's a relatively quiet end to the day, albeit cloudy and damp, with a lot of low cloud persisting around some southern and western coasts, as well as those outbreaks of rain, which will actually turn heavier across South and Mid Wales overnight. And that rain will continue also across parts of Cornwall into Devon and on and off through the Midlands. Showers for northwest Scotland, a cool night to come for the northern half of the UK, a relatively muggy night for the time of year further south, with temperatures staying at 17 Celsius. That gets us off to a mild but murky start across parts of England and Wales, particularly towards the southwest, a lot of coastal fog. And there'll be further drizzle, but the main band of rain pushes north into North Wales, Northern England, as well as Northern Ireland through the day, so turning increasingly wet, clearer to the northeast of Scotland.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Good morning, it's 11 a.m. on Wednesday, the 17th of September, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
And we're broadcasting live today from Windsor Castle for Donald Trump's second state visit. Overnight, the US president has doubled down on his love for Britain.
I love Turnberry, I love Aberdeen. I have a lot of things here that they warm my heart. I want to tell you, it's a very special place. Great place.
Well, there is the US President overnight arriving at Stansted Airport, but later today he'll meet the King and Queen.
I'm live inside the grounds of Windsor Castle ahead of President Trump's arrival. Security is tight, and I'll be bringing you the very latest of the pomp and pageantry.
Now, last night, as the US president was due to arrive, protesters projected a picture of him, Donald Trump, and the sexual predator Jeffrey Epstein on the face of Windsor Castle. And police are expecting many more protests today.
1,500 Met police officers will be looking after protests starting this afternoon. But trouble started last night at a Republican dinner. We'll have footage of that for you very shortly.
And will this visit be a welcome distraction for Sir Keir Starmer, who faces intense scrutiny on his decision to appoint Lord Peter Mandelson as the British ambassador to the United States?
And deportation denied. Another blow for the Prime Minister as the High Court blocks the deportation of an asylum seeker to France. Nobody has been set back so far, but how many migrants are still coming in?
Well, welcome to Windsor Castle for this momentous state visit of the US President Donald Trump, his second visit to be invited by the King, previously visiting under the command of Queen Elizabeth II. But today he'll be inspecting the King's Guards, Miriam, and it's going to be quite a lot of pageantry to come.
Absolutely, and we know that Trump and the Americans really, really enjoy the pomp and circumstance. And I'm sure some people are thinking, why bother? This is so expensive. He's done it. He's been there before. But I think so much of politics, so much of international relations is done behind the scenes. Those individual personal relationships that are really forged at events like this.
Yeah, it'll be a special meeting when the King and Donald Trump have their engagement at that state banquet, of course, but there's also plenty of domestic political news. We were just talking about it, the issue with the High Court last night. So far, not a one-in, one-out deal, it's a loads-in, none-out deal. So a real crisis for Sir Keir Starmer. What do you think about that? Does he need to change human rights legislation? Get in touch with us on gbnews.com/your say.
But first, here's your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Miriam, thank you. The top stories. The Prince and Princess of Wales will soon welcome Donald Trump and the US First Lady Melania Trump to Windsor Castle for the start of their state visit. Upon touching down last night, Donald Trump told reporters Britain is a very special place. The red carpet is being rolled out with carriage processions, military parades, the Red Arrows and a state banquet. But as Mr Trump headed to the residence of the US ambassador to the UK in central London to spend Tuesday night, giant projections of the president alongside paedophile Jeffrey Epstein were beamed on the Windsor Castle by protesters. It is there he will meet with King Charles later today. Thames Valley Police said 4 people were arrested on suspicion of malicious communications after those images appeared on the landmark. Mr Trump has faced questions about his relationship with Epstein after messages allegedly sent to him by the president were published by Congress earlier this month. Britain and the US have struck a tech deal that could bring billions of pounds of investment to the UK as President Donald Trump arrived for his state visit. Sir Keir Starmer said the agreement represented a general step change in Britain's relationship with the US that would deliver growth, security and opportunity up and down the country. The tech prosperity deal, announced as Mr Trump arrived last night, will see the UK and US cooperate in areas including artificial intelligence, quantum computing and nuclear power. It comes alongside £31 billion of investment in Britain from America's top technology companies, including £22 billion from Microsoft. Shadow Science and Technology Secretary Julia Lopez spoke to GB News.
Ultimately, we are in a tech race, and in that race we want to be on the side of the United States and also to make sure that the UK has a good sovereign capability. By and large, it's good to have cooperation with US tech. We need their expertise. We are not alone going to be able to put the investment into some of the things that need to be invested in relation to some of the key technologies around this. But I want to know what has been given in return for this trade deal. It sounds very good with the US inward investment, but has anything been given away? And as ever with this government, have they done a good deal? Because they're very good at producing good headlines. Sometimes you find out later in the day that they've given away something that we didn't actually want to give away. So that detail comes on Thursday, which makes it difficult for me to fully understand and embrace what's gone on with this deal.
The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is facing renewed pressure over his one-in, one-out migrant returns deal with France after an Eritrean man won a last-minute High Court bid to temporarily block his deportation. The man, who cannot be named for legal reasons, had been due to be removed on a flight at 9 a.m. today but will remain in the UK after a judge granted him a short period of interim relief. Lawyers acting on his behalf said the case concerns a trafficking claim and that her client, who alleges he has a gunshot wound in his leg, claims he is vulnerable and faces risk of destitution in France. The Home Office defended the case, saying it was reasonable to expect the man to claim asylum in France. Tech Secretary Liz Kendall says the government is disappointed by the judgment, but she also says it will not stop the France agreement from going ahead. A group of critically ill and injured children have been evacuated from Gaza to the UK for urgent NHS medical treatment, the government's announced. The World Health Organization said that it had supported the medical evacuations of 10 critical children from Gaza to the UK. This comes a day after Israel rejected a UN report which concluded it's committed genocide against Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper said children are too often the innocent victims of war, adding in Gaza, where the healthcare system has been decimated and hospitals are no longer functioning, there are severely ill children unable to get the medical care they need to survive. New official figures show UK inflation remained unchanged last month, but food and drink price rises have accelerated for the 5th month in a row. The Office for National Statistics said the rate of consumer prices index was 3.8% in August, the same as July. This was the level most economists had been expecting for the month, and it means overall inflation remains elevated above the UK's 2% target rate. However, the rate of food and drink inflation rose to 5.1% in August from 4.9% in July. Chief Secretary to the Treasury, James Murray, spoke this morning. And we'll have more from that interview in the next hour. And former Arsenal footballer Thomas Partey has pleaded not guilty to raping 2 women as he appeared in court today. The 32-year-old is accused of 5 counts of rape against the 2 alleged victims, as well as a charge of sexual assault against a 3rd woman. The alleged offences took place between 2021 and 2022 when he played for Arsenal. The Ghanaian midfielder, who now plays for Spanish club Villarreal, faces trial under a High Court judge at the same court on the 2nd of November next year. And Tyler Robinson has appeared in court via video link, charged with the murder of Charlie Kirk. The 22-year-old from Utah was seen for the first time since his arrest after being charged with aggravated murder, weapon and obstruction of justice offences. It came after prosecutors announced they'd be seeking the death penalty. They claimed Robinson's DNA was found on the trigger of the alleged murder weapon. A note was also found under his keyboard which said, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I'm going to take it," according to a charging document from prosecutors. It's also alleged the suspect ordered his roommate to delete incriminating texts about the killing and to stay silent if questioned by police. Those are the latest headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3642 and €1.1514. The price of gold, £2,689.94 per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 9,213 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Miriam Cates and Charlie Peters. And we are here in Windsor for the build-up of the state visit by Donald Trump. And things are really starting to pick up now, Charlie, aren't they?
There we are. There's a real buzz of the crowds just down the road from us as people are waiting for the arrival of the US President Donald Trump. And you can see when the government were telling us that this is the biggest military and security operation for a state visit ever. The evidence is absolutely there. There are 100 officers from the police service of Northern Ireland gathered here and at the airport as part of that security operation. Huge national mutual aid effort. We've just seen a few armed officers moving in, sniffer dogs everywhere, patrols all across Windsor. And we've also seen a few guardsmen practicing in the grounds behind us, the finishing touches ahead of the arrival of Donald Trump.
And the crowd's starting to pick up. Of course, the crowds here not as big as they would have been had it been in London, but nevertheless, probably some very serious royal supporters as well as potentially American president supporters out here in Windsor. So the excitement is definitely building.
Certainly is. And let's get the views now of US political commentator Noralie Knotson. Noralie, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Charlie.
Grand. And obviously this is a momentous occasion for Anglo-American relations, and of course a great moment to show the military links between the two nations. A joint flypast later on this afternoon in central London.
I think it is a very momentous occasion, and as you said, this is historic, and it underscores not only the special relationship, but the emphasis on the unity between the UK and the US, particularly in light of the attack on our Western values and our freedoms. And there will be a focus on peace, prosperity, and protection of the citizens of both nations.
Now, Noralie, overshadowing this visit has been the sacking of Peter Mandelson as the ambassador to Washington. We now only have an acting ambassador, which is quite significant given the state visit. How much has that story rocked the Republican Party in the US, or has it been overshadowed?
Miriam, that's a very good question. Quite frankly, the story is truly about what happened last week with Charlie Kirk, the attack on our freedoms and our ability to disagree in an agreeable manner. So Trump's going to stay focused on positive things. You know, there's a lot of business that's being announced. GSK this morning announced $30 billion investment in the U.S. in R&D. That's a win for the U.S. It's been announced that there's a $100 billion investment in the U.K. from Blackstone, and BlackRock has announced a $500 million investment in data centers, AI, here in the UK. AI, data centers is very important to our national security, and the focus will be on all the positive developments that are happening between the US and the UK.
We're just seeing a few soldiers from the Household Cavalry about to enter Windsor Castle in the last little bit of preparations before, well, one of the central experiences of their careers, welcoming a US president. He'll be so delighted to see the finery of the British military on display. Nobody does it better.
Nobody does it better, and it is no secret that Trump adores this nation. His mother, her family hails from Scotland. He has been so complimentary, and he's very excited to be staying here at the historic Windsor Castle.
And President Trump and the First Lady are due to actually ride in the royal carriage around the grounds in Windsor Castle. We understand this has never happened before on a state visit. Will this be perceived as a significant gesture of friendship?
I think it will be a significant gesture of friendship and will help to lay the groundwork for more positive discussions about business alliances between the two great nations.
And Norrie Knotson, you're speaking about the attack on shared values, and also, obviously, free speech is central to that, with the appalling political assassination last week of Charlie Kirk, that murder. The reverberations of that are still being felt in America. Do you think that discussion will have a resurgence in Britain with the arrival of the US president?
I think it will definitely have a resurgence. And if we know this marks the 250th year of the founding of the United States of America, and the principles are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But without life, without the protection of your life, your liberties mean nothing because you are dead. So it is important that we can express ourselves freely, but not aggressively or threatening people's lives. And I think that's a very important conversation to be had. Yesterday, actually, on the US News, there was a headline that people left of center, 56% believe that it's justified to murder Trump. I mean, what nonsense is being spread by the news?
Absolutely, and of course that's why we're seeing this enormous security operation here today to protect the president and his entourage.
Yeah, and Nora Lee, I mean, when you're speaking about the concerns about threats to life, the security issue here, it does make you realise, especially with that stat, that really horrifying stat, I hadn't heard that before, you've just read out, that 56%, perhaps there's not really so much a public-facing element of this visit. They would have checked, double-checked and rechecked again all security arrangements ahead of the president's arrival.
Yes, everything would have been double-checked. And if you see what Donald Trump has had to do in D.C., politicians were threatened just going to work in D.C., and that's why he had to take over the security of D.C. itself, despite the fact that it's been very controversial. I think he's doing the right thing. We should feel free to walk around and go around our lives, especially when we're protecting the people of our nation.
Norrie Knotson, American political commentator, thank you so much for joining us. And let's now speak to our political editor, Chris Hope, because we have some breaking news, and it's yet another defection to the Reform UK party. Chris, what can you tell us?
Yes, now of course we've been covering all week these defections from former late Tory MPs joining the Reform UK party, notably Maria Caulfield. Yesterday, Monday, was marked by Danny Kruger, of course, the first serving Tory MP to jump ship to Reform UK. But until now, there's never been a defection by an elected Labour politician in England directly to Reform. Until now, because this hour we can reveal that Councillor Mason Humberstone, who is a councillor in Stevenage, he has defected directly to Reform UK. On social media, Councillor Humberstone says this: he's battled with this decision for some time, but deep down I know it's the right call. It isn't ordinary, hard-working people in Stevenage and across our country who've left Labour. Labour has left us. The party he's joined, the Labour Party, he says, is lost, without vision, mired in scandal, and too often speaking for a metropolitan elite rather than the people they're meant to serve. When policies harm British people and weaken our democracy, he cannot, in good conscience, support them. He says he entered politics to serve with integrity and respect. Today, he joins a party that will put the British people and our great nation first. He feels proud to be part of this team and gets ready to work. That is Mason Humberstone, who's the first elected politician to join Reform UK from the Labour Party directly. This could be the start of many more coming, or it could be the only one. We'll wait and see. But this is a significant moment for Nigel Farage as he tries to turn Reform UK into a left and right party. It seems being off the left wing by Kemi Badenoch, for example, the Tory leader. But until now, We've seen no Labour politicians join them. We have the first.
Chris Hope, thank you very much for that breaking news. Very interesting, Charlie, because of course Reform is trying to build this, some would call it a populist movement, but a movement that's really leaning into the mood of the moment, people being proud of their country, fed up of mass immigration. And it was always going to be inevitable that they start to attract people from the right of the Labour Party.
Especially from that so-called red wall, Miriam Cates. They need Labour figures to come along. You do really get the sense now that they are going full speed ahead to get as many defections as possible, particularly after the really headline defection of Danny Kruger earlier in the week. Well, moving on now, it's time for the Great British Giveaway, and it's your chance to be our biggest winner to date with a prize package worth over £104,000.
Well, that's a brand new motorhome and £30,000 in tax-free cash. Here's Hayley Sparks with all the details.
On demand. Good luck. Well, good luck, folks. And here, live in Windsor Castle, the atmosphere is building ahead of the arrival of US President Donald Trump. GB News presenter Tom Harwood, we've got him out on the ground to capture some of the fizz of excitement that's going on. Tom, what's it like down there?
Absolutely, Charlie. I'm just a few yards away from you, really. I'm on the high street here in Windsor. Our tents, you're somewhere in the distance there, much closer to the action than we are. But I wondered if we can get some words with the people who have been gathering here in the heart of Windsor to see if they can catch a glimpse of anything that's going on here with this historic second state visit. Hi, sorry, what's your name?
Kamal Kanwa.
Kamal, lovely to meet you. Why did you come here today?
Well, I'm a local resident, so I usually get involved in community events, and as the police has been swarming around, I thought might as well come and have a look what's happening, obviously, you know.
Yeah, no, it's a huge goings on. I mean, obviously there's flags adorning the high streets all over town. How big has the security operation been here over the last few days?
There have been loads of police on bicycles, vans going around, undercover police in the town centre. But this visit is different, obviously, because usually there's loads of people from the public here, but today there's not that many. There's mostly more press people, right, to be honest, because they've said that we won't get a glimpse of Trump because they think that everything's going to be behind closed doors today.
Are you hoping that you might see something? I mean, we have seen some of these cars come past full of soldiers, full of guards, full of people who are going to make up what goes on behind those walls.
Yeah, I'm hoping to catch a glimpse, hopefully give us a surprise wave or public greeting, but you never know. You can hope. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Well, thank you very much for speaking to us. I wonder if we can speak to someone else in the crowd here. Would you be willing to speak with us on GB News? Brilliant. Why have you come down here today?
Trump is a legend, and absolutely here to support him. He's wonderful. He's not a politician, and that's why he's doing so well in America. He's a businessman, and honestly, I wish he could do the same here that's happening in America, because he's saving the people there a lot of money. He loves his country. He's a very patriotic man, and I just wish he was here. So, yeah, we've come to support him.
Are you a bit? Is it a bit of a shame that it's all behind these sort of walls that we might not actually get a glimpse here on the high street of Donald Trump?
Yeah, I believe he's coming in via helicopter straight into the grounds about 11:45, and then there's going to be a fly past about 5:15 in the evening. So yeah, it's a shame. When Macron was here, apparently there was a carriage ride through the town. That's not happening, whether it's heightened security for Trump and the First Lady, which is fair enough, and also because of the Charlie Kirk incident in the States, the security is heightened. So as long as he's kept safe, that's cool. It's nice to be here in the atmosphere, and yeah, just keep him safe and let him keep doing what he's doing.
Can I ask what it says on your shirt there?
Oh, Brits for Trump.
Brits for Trump. Marvellous. And you've got some flags here as well.
Yeah. So he's a legend.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for speaking to us. Let's see if we can dive through a bit more of the crowd. As we are saying, of course, because we're not expecting the carriage ride to come down the high street, because it is more behind closed doors, this is a sort of strange atmosphere here along the high street. Lots of journalists, but also lots of people just interested in what might be seen. I wonder, excuse me, would you be willing to speak to us? No. This is incredible. I mean, it's about 50-50 journalists and onlookers. You can never be sure. But back to you.
Tom Harwood clearly enjoying it as much as anyone there in the crowd. Thank you very much for that report. Well, don't go anywhere, because we're going to be speaking to our very own Bev Turner, who was on Air Force One with the President last night.
Yeah, looking forward to hearing about how that flight went. This is Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News. Stay with us.
Thank you. How long they want?
Yeah, just keep going, I guess. Yeah.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom, live on GB News from Windsor with Miriam Cates and Charlie Peters. And we're going to go now to our GB News presenter, Bev Turner, who has been travelling with the President on Air Force One and joins us now from inside the grounds of Windsor Castle. Bev, fantastic to see you. Tell us about that flight over on Air Force One last night.
Hi guys, I hope you can hear me. The signal isn't great here at the moment. I am, as you can see, I'm basically in a nursery here in Windsor Castle. I'm surrounded by toys and Lego and train sets because we are being held here in the press room inside the castle until we get the green light to go. When you're on these occasions, it's pretty much hurry up and then wait. I'm here with the international press crew. As you say, I arrived on Air Force One last night with Trump and his team. If I have to describe the atmosphere amongst the group who are here from the White House, I would say it's pretty subdued on this occasion. It is hard to overstate how significant the death of Charlie Kirk has been to this administration. Most of the people who worked closely with President Trump were good friends of Charlie Kirk. And the President came down last night on the airplane to say hello to the press, and he definitely didn't look as jolly as I have seen him before. He didn't look particularly happy. He looked a bit tired and worn out because, of course, when he gets back from here on Thursday, the funeral of Charlie Kirk, which him and his family will all attend, will be on Saturday in Arizona. But before then, we have to get through this state visit, and what a remarkable occasion for England and for America and for this relationship. I'm sure you've been through already what's going to happen today, but just to tell you from our perspective as the international press, what we know is that POTUS and FLOTUS, as they are called by the Trump team, that is, of course, the President of the United States and the First Lady of the United States, will be arriving at Windsor Castle at about 12:20, where we understand that they'll be meeting the Prince and Princess of Wales and, of course, King Charles. I don't know whether you have had confirmation yet as to whether Queen Camilla will be in attendance or not, having suffered from sinusitis. And then there'll be a private lunch at just after 1 o'clock. And then at 3 o'clock, the President and his wife will lay a wreath at the tomb of Queen Elizabeth II, of course. And we will be there. I will be in a very small group of journalists and press who will be in attendance at that particular event. And then at 4:25, we've got Beating Retreat, which is the military ceremony in the 17th century. And again, hopefully, myself and GB News will be up close at that occasion. And then the state banquet tonight at 8:30. We won't be in that particular room. The press are not going to be invited to that occasion. There will be still photographers, but nobody from the British or the international even television or written media will be at that occasion. But Donald Trump is very excited about this. This is exactly what he loves. He loves the UK. We've got a very good trade deal because he loves the UK, and he's made no apologies for that. He will be very much enjoying this today. And then he'll have the sleepover of his dreams in Windsor Castle tonight.
And Bev Turner, we're just looking at these live pictures of the household division forming up on parade, awaiting the arrival of the US President. Members of the Royal Navy also outside the grounds of Windsor Castle. It's clear that they are putting on a proper show for the US President. On your flight over and speaking to members of the White House team, how much do they appreciate the effort being put on by His Majesty's Armed Forces to welcome the US President, as we see now members of the Royal Marines Band marching into shot?
It's a very good question. Do they appreciate it? Yes, very much. But is there a sense that the UK is lucky to be having a visit from President Trump? Yes, very much. Remember, this is a very confident administration. There'll be a lot of people here who say that actually the UK is the lucky one on this occasion. You know, Trump is doing very well in very many areas in the US, particularly in Washington, D.C. I'm now based there, as you know, to launch our new show next week. And the people in Washington that I talk to, just the everyday man and woman on the streets, will tell you, even the reluctant Trump supporters is that things have changed. Even those people who hated Donald Trump can't deny the fact that he has reduced crime in that city. He has taken the homeless off the street. He offered them an ultimatum. Either they take a place in a shelter or they go to prison. Even within the 2-3 weeks that I've been in DC, the parks have cleared. The US has a very different sort of homeless person, I think it's safe to say. They are often quite elderly, often quite a lot of older people on the street. They often clearly suffering from psychosis, psychological issues, mental health disorders, and probably should be in residential care. Well, Donald Trump has put them in residential care. He's also working on improving the houses, interestingly. They have quite a lot of empty properties in Washington, D.C., low-value properties that have been left to go to wreck and ruin. He's spending a lot of money on renovating those houses in order to accommodate people who are genuinely in need. Now, this is all the good stuff that Trump is doing, that you don't often hear a lot about on the British press at all. And so I feel there's still a great misunderstanding of what he's doing. But look, we've got a fantastic couple of days ahead of us. I will be there up close and personal. I will bring you what I can and hand back to you, Charlie and Miriam.
Bev Turner inside the grounds of Windsor Castle with the International Press Pack. Thank you so much for that report, and we'll be crossing again to you later on. Now, of course, Charlie, one of the features of this visit is the security. Surrounded by police, we've seen lots of soldiers arriving. So let's now talk to security expert at the University of Buckingham, Professor Anthony Glees. Anthony, what can you tell us about the kind of planning and preparation that goes into a visit like this to make sure that the President and everybody else is kept safe?
Well, there's been a lot of planning, obviously, but the hard truth, I'm afraid, this morning is that all the King's horses and all the King's men and all the work being done by Thames Valley Constabulary, because Thames Valley Police have the responsibility for security at Windsor as long as other agencies. For all of that, they still cannot stop the people who projected images onto Windsor Castle and also onto the park. That's a very serious matter. The police said, yes, we've arrested 4 people, but that was after the images were projected. And it's not rocket science to realize that, yes, this was the projection of an image and in its own way relatively harmless, but it could have been the crosshairs of a rifle. Now, what we've been told is that the whole of Windsor is under close protection, and that Windsor Castle in particular is more than 1,000 years. It's protected our monarch. That Windsor Castle in particular is a sterile area, and it may well be sterile, and the public aren't going to get to see very much. They may see 2 helicopters fly over, one of which will contain the president. But I think the whole of Britain, whatever you think about President Trump, we want him to feel totally secure in this country. And the first hurdle, I'm afraid, has not been crossed. The old-fashioned pomp and circumstance cannot stop people projecting images. And my own fear is not so much for today at Windsor, but for tomorrow at Chequers, because it is much harder to create a sterile zone round Chequers in the Buckinghamshire countryside. And we see a large anti-Trump demo in London. I think the authorities will be very worried indeed.
Yes, Professor Anthony, last night I actually saw those images being projected onto Windsor Castle as soon as I arrived. It was quite fortuitous timing. We also see the police just running into that building to sort of deal with that, because the projector was coming out of the top floor. It was very obvious where it was coming from, the light beaming out of the window. Those sorts of issues will be a cause of major embarrassment for the British authorities, won't they? And they'll be now checking again their plans to prevent other forms of projection or sort of intrusive protest over the future days and different locations.
Absolutely so. As I say, I think inside Windsor Castle, anybody that's been to Windsor, as people like me have many times, it is a very secure area. It has been secure for 1,000 years. But the possibility of making a protest, that is very real, using some kind of projection, but also, please, nobody should forget both the attempted assassination of President Trump and then the assassination of Charlie Kirk took place from over 200 meters away using a modern rifle sights. So it is perfectly possible. If you can project an image onto a building, you can also get that building in your rifle sights. Now, it's much harder to get guns in the United Kingdom. We know all of that. But the fact that the police had to go in after the projections, that is a real wake-up sign to Thames Valley Police. And also, frankly, there should have been a lot of intelligence here, because we know...
Just on screen now, we have Marco Rubio arriving in Windsor, waiting for Donald Trump. So the first of, we'd anticipate several senior American cabinet members arriving in Windsor. That's Marco Rubio there, a one-time enemy of Donald Trump before he became president in 2016, running for the US presidency back then. Now one of his close allies, obviously going to be central to relations between the US and the UK. Anthony, help us understand the sort of security planning that would have been conducted by the Americans coming to Britain, because they have so many more resources. They've got, obviously, the greatest intelligence platforms in the world. Would they have, in a sense, taken ownership of much of this planning, especially for their personnel, like Marco Rubio?
That is also absolutely the case. Yes, the UK is a sovereign country, but when it comes to security and the security of American assets, and particularly the president and his cabinet, then the responsibility not only lies with the United States security people, particularly the Secret Service, but it is also the case that we would defer when it comes to the carrying of firearms, for example. It's not normal practice in Britain to allow security people guarding a foreign head of state to carry firearms. But in the case of the Secret Service and President Trump, the Americans will be carrying their own guns, and basically they will be in charge. But as I say, the shambles of the projected images will already have caused some disquiet. And we need to be very mindful that what, in my view at any rate, President Trump needs to see is a secure and confident Britain. Dare I say it, we need to do it better than the Secret Service did it for President Trump, when luckily he survived that assassination attempt, or the Charlie Kirk assassination. Security in America, because there's so many firearms, is in many ways not as good as it is in the United Kingdom. And that's why, bearing in mind there are such a lot of people out there who object to this visit, who will be demonstrating in London, one thing leads to another. And yes, there's a political lesson there too, because we believe very strongly in lawful free speech in this country, despite what Vice President has told us about this. We believe strongly in free speech, but actually we don't believe in absolute free speech. We believe that people can radicalize other people, and that again is the danger. You have Stop the Oil people being thrown out of a Republican party in Windsor last night for making a rumpus. These protesters may themselves not have violence in mind, but there will be people listening to what they are saying who will have violence in their mind. That's why we don't allow absolute free speech, and why there are laws to ensure that people cannot be radicalized in this country. Even in America, they're anxious about it. So one way or another, we've got to put on the very best display that we can. And again, people like me are glad that fighter jets are going to be flying over
Anthony, thank
Windsor.
you very much for your time this morning. Thank you, Preston Anthony Cleese there from the University of Buckingham. We're back here live outside Windsor Castle. Let's bring in now the royal historian Alexander Larman. We've just been hearing about the security links between the two countries and the work that's going to be conducted to keep all members of the American delegation safe. But what's going to be done to keep the political links safe? Because this is quite a unique collection of people, especially for the second state visit of President Donald Trump?
What's being done is, if you look at the royal family, they're going to be front and centre. And what's important to remember is that it's not just going to be the King and the Queen, it's also going to be the Prince and Princess of Wales. They're going to be the ones formally greeting the President today, and they're going to be the ones, if you will, holding his hand. And what's very interesting is that it's quite clear that it's a very joined-up operation between 10 Downing Street and the royal family, because obviously this is a very political event. But Donald Trump is not just an Anglophile, he's a massive fan of the royal family, and so this state visit is very important to him personally, because he claimed to be very close to the late Queen. I mean, I think that's more his projection than what was actually true, but nonetheless, if you want to get Donald Trump to be positive about something, bring in the royal family. So this is a really good example of British soft power. This is a really good way of showing that regardless of the political problems we might be having, we still have all this history and tradition, and Donald Trump will be the beneficiary of that.
You say it might be a projection, Miriam, but I think those photos of the US President with Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, they're quite cheery. He's so proud of them, clearly.
He's clearly very proud of the fact that he met her and spoke to her on a number of occasions. But Alex, one of the things that this highlights is how small the royal family has become. The only members that are going to be involved today, the King, potentially not even the Queen. She was ill yesterday, she didn't go to that royal funeral, and of course William and Kate. How will the royal family cope in future as the size diminishes?
Well, Miriam, I've just heard that the Queen will be joining them today and that she's actually recovered, which is great news. But you're absolutely right, it's a very small core royal family, and obviously Charles always wanted the core royal family to be smaller, but we really are seeing no Harry, no Andrew, obviously that's to be expected, but no Prince Edward. And so you do start to wonder, well, shall we get a few more people in? Because there is a sense that they are running out of people, and bringing in a couple more senior royals would have been something that I think would have been welcome in many quarters.
Do you think potentially there's a role for Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie in the future? William seems to be close to them.
I think that they're so tainted by association with their father and to a lesser extent their mother. It'd be very hard to imagine them having any kind of line role, but who knows? I mean, you can't make any predictions with the royal family because things have a habit of changing exceptionally fast.
Of course, also, Alexander, at the same time this visit's going on, there's quite a delicate political situation going on in Britain with this various rows going on in Downing Street. The British political movements are quite lucky that they have the royal family to fall back on to sort of sterilise the debate and turn it away from politics, because they can't expect the monarchy and politics to overlap. He'll be very welcome that that sort of sterilisation is happening at the moment.
Except, of course, the royal family is not in a happy and stable situation, because when Harry came back last week, I mean, that actually was overshadowed in the end by all the other news in the world. But that meeting between Harry and the King, which has not yet been briefed to the papers, it was quite a short meeting, and we don't know whether that was a positive outcome or not. But certainly there is a lot of tension in the royal family, and obviously William and Harry are not talking. There's a Prince Andrew hoo-ha which continues to rumble on. It is not a stable and happy firm at the moment, and so Trump is coming in the midst of all of these difficulties, and the timing couldn't be worse in many regards, actually.
OK, Alexander Laumann, royal historian, thank you very much for your time this morning on Britain's Newsroom. And Miriam, I think we've got to go back now to our royal correspondent Cameron Walker, who's inside Windsor Castle for the latest.
Hello, Charlie. Yes, I can now reveal that President Trump and Melania will be arriving in the next 9 minutes in Marine One into the walled garden of the Windsor Castle grounds. Now, this really is unprecedented. It's one of a number of flourishes that have been added to make this state visit extra special for President Trump. Of course, his second state visit here to the United Kingdom, due to land on the lawn at 11:55 a.m. and this garden is nestled within the grounds of the Windsor Home Park. That's within the guarded perimeter of Windsor Castle, well away from the public gaze. Of course, we've spoken over the last hour or so, haven't we, about the number of members of the public who have gathered, including protesters and well-wishers for President Trump. But it is going to be the Prince and Princess of Wales who greet the President and First Lady on arrival. As you've mentioned, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has already arrived at a little outbuilding in the walled garden. garden, as well as a number of US dignitaries as well ahead of that arrival. I would expect, you can just see a live shot now on your screen for those of you watching on television, I would expect in the next couple of minutes that the Prince and Princess of Wales will emerge from that house or arrive from the walled garden, and it is there where the Prince and Princess are going to escort President Trump and the First Lady to greet the King and Queen. It has been confirmed by Buckingham Palace in the last couple of minutes that the Queen can and will attend all elements of the state visit today. Of course, yesterday she had to pull out of the funeral due to her recovering from sinusitis, and that extra bit of rest appears to have worked, because we're told that she can actually take part in all of this, these ceremonial elements. So Victoria House is the name of that house, which is in the Royal Kitchen Gardens, the walled gardens, and in the next couple of minutes we are expecting President Trump and Melania Trump to arrive, and of course we are expecting the Royal Marines Band to play during the arrival, and the military procession will begin, starting with the carriage ride through Windsor Great Park, through George IV Gate of Windsor Castle and into the quadrangle, where President Trump will be invited to inspect the Guard of Honour formed by the Coldstream Guards, the Grenadier Guards and the Scots Guards.
Cameron Walker, thank you. They're inside the grounds of Windsor Castle. Well, let's go back to Alexander Larman now, royal expert. Cameron talking there about the detail, the procedure, everything that's going to take place today. And we're outside this 1,000-year-old castle. Now, the royal family might be having a turbulent time right now, but they've been having a turbulent time for centuries. What are some of the key events that have taken here over the years?
Well, I mean, if you look at Windsor Castle, it has historically been the home to the royal family for about 1,000 years. I mean, if you look at the history that's taken place within its walls, I mean, you're talking, it's not the kind of place where there have been things like executions and beheadings and stuff like that, but what there have been an awful lot. I mean, if you look at, say, Queen Victoria, for instance, who was a great fan of Windsor Castle and spent many happy years here. But then you go back to monarchs from, you know, every single historical period. And certainly when Charles became king, he knew that because he is a great lover of tradition and history, he knew that there was a very heavy weight upon his shoulders. And certainly you look at Windsor Castle today and the flag is flying as it's been flying for centuries. And there is that sense that Donald Trump is coming into something today which is greater, because obviously Windsor Castle has existed a lot longer than America has. And of course that's something that any president knows, that this is history with a capital H.
Alexander, we're learning there just from Cameron Walker, the Prince and Princess of Wales will be welcoming the US President Donald Trump when he arrives at the grounds of Windsor Castle. What do you think is the significance behind that choice? Is it to sort of keep the King in reserve for a more senior meeting later on, or does it point to what you were saying before earlier, your analysis that perhaps the King and the President don't massively get on a personal level? Perhaps the King is a little bit hesitant to spend as much time with him as possible.
Well, I think there's an element of that, but also, I mean, William and Donald Trump get on well. I mean, they've met several times in the past, and they actually seem to have a rapport, and that's not an obvious rapport that the two would have. But I think there was clearly a decision to have, if you will, a friendly face meeting Trump when he arrived. And obviously, the Princess of Wales is somebody who's exceptionally good at giving a good public account of herself. And so every single detail of this will have been thought out very carefully by the royal family. The optics will have been thought out. Just every single thing will have been minutely planned, so there's no potential for embarrassment, no potential for anything going wrong, because nothing can go wrong.
Now, in our constitutional monarchy, the monarch, the king, does not have a political role. He's not supposed to speak publicly about politics, but he can't help being involved here behind the scenes. Will he have had a political briefing from the Prime Minister or the Prime Minister's team before this event?
Well, obviously, he's doing this speech tonight at the banquet, and that speech will have been very carefully gone over, because Charles likes to say things which sound completely innocuous, but there'll be a lot of people analysing that speech to see if there's any anti-Trump or anti-American sentiment. And so you can imagine that it will have been seen as a very political event, because obviously Trump then replies to that speech as well, and of course it's not known what he's going to say, because he's such an unreliable and unpredictable figure that anything could happen. And of course the King has to be aware that in his role as the keeper of tradition, he has to be the person who is essentially setting up this wild card. I mean, imagine it was like a Las Vegas cabaret, and he's the straight man to Trump's Joker. That's essentially what his role is.
Alexander, as this visit is starting today, overnight, you had this intervention from Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London. Always one to rile up the US president. They've got something, one of the great derbies, as it were now, one of the great rivalries between the two of them. They really despise each other, don't they? And I think that there's almost a sense that they relish the opportunity to fire a few attacks at one another. Can you expect the US president to react to that, or will there be nervousness inside the royal family, perhaps, that there's going to be a bit of political mudslinging going on?
Well, as somebody who survived the tube strikes last week, I'm not best disposed towards Sir Sadiq at the moment, and thankfully, of course, Trump is not coming in the middle of tube strike hell. But certainly, I'd be surprised if there wasn't a Truth Social post about the useless Mayor of London at some point. But you are right, it's knockabout to a large extent, because nothing that Sadiq can say is going to have any great effect, and nothing that Donald Trump is going to say is going to have any great effect. So you imagine that, while I'm sure there's no love lost between the two men, I don't think there's going to be an awful lot of light and shade in this situation.
We've been speaking about the protests in London, one of them led by Republic, a group that desperately wants to get rid of the monarchy. Do you think that's an argument that will ever hold sway here in the UK?
Well, it depends how much Prince Andrew is seen in public, to be honest with you, because every single time that miserable man shows his face, you begin to think that the popularity of the monarchy falls about 10 points. And obviously, Andrew's connections with Jeffrey Epstein are very live at the moment. I mean, just last night there was a picture of Trump and Epstein being put on Windsor Castle itself, and they can easily do the same today with Andrew and Epstein.
Do you think the family recognise that Prince Andrew risk towards their popularity in terms of the public perception and when they have public appearances? Our royal correspondent Cameron Walker was showing me a clip this morning before we came on air about Prince William and Prince Andrew gathering yesterday. Prince William not responding a word as Andrew tries to engage him for about 2 minutes, just total silence.
It's a hilarious video to watch because you see the contempt and boredom on William's face, because Andrew is a deeply boring man. I mean, that's the funny thing. He isn't a sort of, buccaneering, cartoonish baddie. He's just a really, really dull man who happens to be a member of the royal family. And so ultimately, yes, he is a reputational disaster, and the Epstein thing is a reputational disaster. So we still don't know how that's going to play out, because obviously the Trump-Andrew-Epstein connection is a fascinatingly complicated one, and if anything is mentioned over the next 24 hours, it could get quite ugly for quite a lot of people.
Well, Alexander Lohman, thank you so much for your help with us this morning. And I think you were almost describing Prince William as a warm-up act for the King there, Charlie. I'm sure he would like to be described as that.
It does feel a bit like that, though, does it not? I mean, the next generation leading to the commander-in-chief, as it were.
But interestingly, that they get on, William and Trump. I can see a synergy there. Well, we've had some fantastic scenes this morning, Charlie. I think what really struck me as well was when Bev Turner was telling us that the mood was quite sombre in the Trump camp because of the death of Charlie Kirk, not just a political figure, but a close friend of many in the Trump allies.
Yes, and it's putting that issue of free speech front and centre of this presidential visit. We're expecting a lot of political discussion amid all the royal pomp and pageantry. And let's go to the man who knows all about that, our royal correspondent Cameron Walker, live in Windsor Castle.
Thank you, Charlie and Miriam. You're watching and listening to a special edition of GB News. The time is 11:55, and any moments now we're expecting the President of the United States and First Lady of the United States to touch down in the Marine One helicopter within the grounds of Windsor Castle ahead of this unprecedented second state visit to the United Kingdom for President Trump, perhaps emphasising the importance that the British government has on shoring up the relationships with the United States of America. And this really is going to be a military ceremony which is on an unprecedented scale, something we haven't seen in living memory. 120 horses, 1,300 members of the British military in Windsor Castle, including 160 personnel from the Royal Marines and Royal Navy, 1,000 from the British Army, and 140 from the Royal Air Force. And if the weather holds, we are going to see the first ever for a state visit UK and US joint flypast of F-35 aircraft in a demonstration of the strength of the US and UK defence and security relationships. And in the next few minutes, we're expecting in the walled garden within the guarded Windsor perimeter, President Trump's helicopter to land. And it is the future King and Queen's role, the Prince and Princess of Wales, who will form the official greeting party for the President and the First Lady. When they arrive, they will be accompanied by the music from the band of the Household Cavalry, wearing state's dress, a uniform designed in the 17th century. It's that British tradition, the old tradition, older than America, some parts of our traditions, including, of course, Windsor Castle itself, the oldest occupied castle in the world. And the Prince and Princess of Wales, having greeted the President and the First Lady, will then escort them to the King and Queen ahead of the magnificent carriage procession through the grounds of Windsor Castle. And the moment of the handshake between the King and President Trump is when 2 royal gun salutes will fire. One here within the grounds of Windsor Castle, the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery. The other will be fired within His Majesty's Palace and Fortress of the Tower of London, within the City of London, the Honourable Artillery Company. And this truly is going to be a scale not seen here at Windsor Castle for some time. And this is about buttering up, let's say, the President of the United States. It's the King wielding his soft power within the United Kingdom ahead of the tough political negotiations which inevitably are going to be taking place tomorrow at Chequers, the Prime Minister's country residence. Now, I can hear in my ear a very, very noisy helicopter, which suggests to me that President Trump's arrival is in fact imminent. And as you can probably imagine here, I'm within the grounds of Windsor Castle ahead of this arrival. The security presence is on a different scale. There is armed police, there is Secret Service,